If you are a student loan borrower, you know you haven't had to make payments on your loan since March of 2020, but student loan payments are coming back in just days. And new research by Bankrate shows that many of you aren't all that ready for it. Joining us now is Sarah Foster with Bankrate. Good morning, Sarah. This has been sort of a long pause, but now it seems like a lot of people are thinking, not long enough. What do borrowers need to know?
Yeah, good morning. And it's important, I think, for borrowers to feel like, if you're feeling stressed, you're not alone. Many borrowers are feeling this way too. And in fact, we saw that 57% of current student loan borrowers who say that their biggest financial regret is taking on too much debt. They say that their stress has grown exponentially in the past year. And so I think it's important for borrowers to know that they have options out there. October 1st is often that date when payments are said to resume, but it looks different for everybody depending on their servicer. Keep an eye out for a statement from your servicer. You should be getting communication from them at least 21 days before your due date. And then, of course, interest has already been accruing since September.
Yes, and we did report that. So at the beginning, in March of 2020, there was 0% interest, right? But then in September, it was like, hey, you don't have to pay it now, but if you don't, you're going to start accruing that interest. That is good to know. Can you talk a little bit about some options? I mean, do people have any options if they say, I just don't have this right now, I don't have the funds to resume these payments?
Borrowers do have options. And I think, there are two typical paths here that borrowers have. They can find a payment plan that's based on the amount of money that they owe in student loan debt, or they can find a payment plan that's based on the amount of money and specifically the discretionary income they have a year. And if you're someone who's worried about being able to make those payments, you're wondering how this is going to fit into your budget, an income-driven repayment plan is likely the best option for you. And I will call attention to borrowers. It's really important to note that the Biden administration has just started rolling out its latest addition to those income-driven repayment plans known as the SAVE plan. And it's supposedly going to be the plan that could offer you the cheapest monthly payment. And for some borrowers, a payment as low as $0 a month.
Yeah, and these things don't automatically happen. Where should people be checking in with? Should they be checking in with their loan servicer or with the Department of Education? Or where do I need to go to find out if I'm eligible or how to lower my payment?
Yeah, your servicer is going to really be kind of that right-hand person that you always need to be working with. Make sure you know how to log into your servicer account. And, for 44% of borrowers, they actually are going to be working with a new servicer than they had before the pandemic pause began. So it's important to really know who that person is. But once you figure this out, you can log into your account, play around with different payment plans, apply for the SAVE plan if it's something that works for you, and then hopefully help get you back on track to feeling less stressed out about your debt.
Yeah, I mean, do we know how long it takes to find out if you're approved for that SAVE plan if you go online and apply for it?
Typically, the Department of Education has said it's taking about 3 to 5 weeks, but I think this is really kind of why it underscores how important it is to get started as soon as possible, because with October 1st right around the corner, your due date kind of depending on, the month, depending on your servicer, it's important to just make sure that you're taking these steps to do that financial housekeeping now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so this was really tricky because I spoke with a lot of consumers, some of them who thought that they had a federally backed student loan, and then they heard all these things about pausing on payments and didn't realize that because of their servicer, it was actually a private loan and they were getting dinged like this whole time for not making payments. What has Bankrate found out about the number of Americans who are concerned about these payments? And I mean, even the number of Americans who have these outstanding student loans?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We've seen through our research here that even some of the back and forth that existed just a few months ago when the Supreme Court was considering whether President Joe Biden's plan to forgive up to $20,000 in student loan debt was, legally sound, we've seen that a lot of borrowers don't really know what options are out there for you. And according to our Bankrate surveys, we know that 1 in 4 Americans with student loan debt, they say that that's their biggest financial regret. It trumps other kinds of financial steps like saving early enough for retirement or taking on too much credit card debt. That's what Americans are kind of, for 1 in 4, are regretting the most. But it's interesting because when you look at, higher education, the costs associated with it and the opportunities that they open up, Americans are kind of, looking at this as a double-edged sword because 59% of them say that it's opened up income opportunities, it's helped them pursue their careers, but then 69% of them also say that if they could do anything differently in hindsight, they would change at least something.
Yeah, I mean, that is difficult because who would have thought back in March of 2020 when they were offered this sort of break during the pandemic that when the payments became due again, interest rates would be so high and, they would have maxed out credit cards by now. But we appreciate your insight and sharing this information with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.